Good afternoon. Surbhi is not here. Good afternoon and welcome to Murmurations, a panel discussion anchored in the exhibition curated by Ravi Agarwal on view at the old PWD complex. This exhibition brings together artists who respond to their immediate surroundings, their sites, locations, and layered identities. They articulate the voices of the often unseen or overlooked of everyday lives that sit at the margins yet hold their own fierce life force. Their works resonate with human and more than human worlds, creating a shared vocabulary of attention, care, and solidarity. This session will open up those conversations further as the artists reflect on their practices and invite us to consider the quieter narratives that shape our landscapes and our ways of seeing. We are joined today by Zishan A. Latif, Kungatashi, Mia Yu, Prabhakar Pachpute, Birendra Kumar Yadav, Donna Conlon, and the duo Neetu Das and Surbhi Mittal, and Shams Kabid. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you all for coming here from across the country and across the world. Donna is not here. Donna lives in Panama. So, for the exhibition, I'm Ravi Agarwal. For the exhibition, I don't want to articulate anything because art articulates more than sound, more than words. So you should go and see it at PWD if you haven't. But this conversation is just to explore deeply artistic engagements uh, through some questions and reflections. These are artists who I have followed and respect highly because all of them have long-standing practices. And I think what's important I want to state is that artistic practice is a long-term affair, and you are immersed in it. And the forms which appear, which all of us engage with, that's just the point of engagement with the artistic practice. And it's up to us to read into it and to see where it appears from and why it is like this and not something else. So these are something which artists engage with, and so it is making meaning of their own relationships with what they're doing. So I'm going to, the way we're talking about, because we just have over an hour, just about hour and a quarter, we have to finish at 1:30, and we decided that we will not speak about uh, the art itself, but about the artistic engagement. So we decided I'm going to pose some questions and open questions, and then go around and people can comment on them, the artists. But just as a quick start to introduce, we have, she did introduce, but that's Birendra Yadav. He's a sculptor primarily and works with terracotta. Dishan Latif, whose name we always get wrong, I'm so sorry. It's a double A. And his collaborator Amin, some of you may have heard, uh, is a singer, folk singer, if I may use the word, from Assam, and they have worked together. And Mia Yu, who's an artist from China, now lives in Paris, and whose film you can see. It's a fabulous film. Tunga Kashi, who lives in Sikkim, works with photographs but also with text and community. And Prabhakar Panchkute, who I've worked with many times, is a fabulous sculptor, less known as a sculptor, but fabulous sculptor, and a painter who can manage scale at. So he's done work for us in various shows, which are 9 meters and 10 meters. So that's not easy thing to do. I've, this is Neetu Das. Neetu is a professor of English literature at Delhi University, but she's also a poet and a birder. And a collaborator, Surabhi, is doing another performance somewhere, and so she'll join us soon. And their work is also at the Murmurations. So the first question is, I would like everybody to comment on relationships with the word community in whatever way it deals with your practice. And after shuru kare, you can speak in whatever language you're comfortable with. I mean, English or Hindi. I'm not sure Bengali log ज़्यादा जानते होंगे यहाँ पर. But English or Hindi, and those who don't understand Hindi will find a way to translate it at some point. But your comfort is more important.
मेरा जो वर्क है
ये ले लो.
हेलो हेलो तो मैं काफ़ी 10 साल से ब्रिक वर्कर कम्युनिटी है जो नॉर्थ इंडिया में
आवाज़ और थोड़ा सा ऊंचा.
हाँ तो मेरे कॉलेज के टाइम में ब्रिक कम्युनिटीज जो ब्रिक वर्कर बनाते हैं स्मॉल स्केल इंडस्ट्री नॉर्थ इंडिया में बट वो मेरा एंगेजमेंट इस तरीके था क्योंकि हम लोग नॉर्थ इंडिया से थे मतलब मेरे फैमिली वो माइग्रेट करके झारखंड में कोल माइंस में काम करते थे झारखंड का तो मैं उस कम्युनिटी से कॉलेज के टाइम में मिला जस्ट लैंग्वेज खोटा के थ्रू क्योंकि बहुत रेयर था कि मतलब बनारस यूपी में भोजपुरी स्पीकिंग एरिया है वहाँ पे आप खोटा वो भी सरना कम्युनिटी जो एकदम रेयर ट्राइबल है तो दुमका झारखंड में रांची के आसपास में है मतलब तो वहाँ से मतलब हमने ऐसे ही एक कन्वर्सेशन से स्टार्ट हुआ मैं मिलने के लिए गया मतलब वहाँ से और इस तरीके से ये हुआ मतलब कि मतलब मेरे लिए भी ये था कि पूरा एक जस्टिफिकेशन था हम लोग यहाँ से माइग्रेट करके झारखंड जा रहे हैं क्योंकि हमारा जो गांव है पूरा का पूरा गांव मतलब आप बोल सकते हैं मतलब ये यूपी का और बिहार का भी ये छपरा और ये सब जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट है वो पूरा का पूरा माइग्रेट करके झारखंड में कोल माइंस में काम करते हैं क्योंकि जितने कॉन्ट्रैक्टर थे वो ज़्यादातर इसी एरिया के थे वो सब अपने वासेपुर में देखा होगा वो सेम रामाधीर सिंह वो सब तो वो पूरा वो टाइम 80s 90s अभी तक वैसे ही चलता है तो हमने ऐसे ही मतलब एक इंगेजमेंट वर्कशॉप आर्ट रिच के साथ मैं काम कर रहा था एक छोटा सा ग्रांट मिला था और वो वर्कशॉप में था बच्चों के साथ काम करना था ब्रिक किल में तो वैसा एक स्टार्ट था फिर हमने ऐसे 3-4 साल तक ऐसे वर्कशॉप था फिर धीरे धीरे मैं उनसे इंगेज हुआ तो फिर मैं अपने काम को देखने लगा तो पहले जो एकदम इनिशियल स्टेज था जो मेरे वर्क का वो बहुत ऐसे डॉक्यूमेंट्री अप्रोच था और उसके बाद में लॉकडाउन के बाद क्योंकि वहाँ जा नहीं सकते थे तो उसके बाद बहुत रीइन्वेंट करके मैं मटेरियल के थ्रू टेराकोटा के थ्रू
अभी भी कांटेक्ट है वहाँ जाके
मतलब लॉकडाउन तक तो मैं डायरेक्ट मतलब हर 1-2 महीने में वर्कशॉप पे रहता हूँ मतलब काफ़ी मतलब 7-8 साल तक ये अभी मैं कभी कभी अगर होम टाउन गया तो फिर मैं जाता हूँ क्योंकि ये ब्रिक किल में क्या होता है कि वो एक ही लेबर नहीं रहते ना मतलब वो 7-8 महीना में हरदम चेंज होते रहते हैं कुछ कुछ जो है मतलब जो क्योंकि वो बहुत पैसे ले लेते हैं एक ही बार में तो वो काफ़ी टाइम से है मतलब वो उनका 2-3 जनरेशन तक कभी उसी किल में है बाकी आते रहते हैं जाते रहते हैं मतलब तो उनका भी मतलब ऐसा सिस्टम है एक उन्होंने पूरा ऐसा सेट करके रखा है कि क्योंकि वो पहली बार ही झारखंड या मतलब वहाँ से ट्रेवल करे तो खुद से ट्रेवल भी नहीं कर सकते तो वो एक एजेंट होता है वो उस एरिया में जाएगा सबको कलेक्ट करेगा ट्रेन में बैठाएगा और वो लेके आता है
So I just comment a little more on. He talks about his relationship with Rick Gills, his family from coal mining, and also how he got engaged with the brick kiln, documenting the brick kiln, but then becoming more reflective and working through materials. I have sort of photographed brick kilns many years back, and uh, what you what we were discussing yesterday was, I mean, they are just brick kilns, but they're the foundation of the construction industry. So this is, and they only use topsoil, and all the labor is migrant labor. And migrant labor are those people who don't have land in villages, cannot make a living, so they'll also have a kind of social hierarchy, caste identity, and so there are in this brick kiln is sort of the core of what the social and uh, political roots of our country, of our and over 90% of the labor is migrant labor in our country, which we don't realize. Only 10% is organized. So
मतलब ब्रिक टीम में बहुत सारे ऐसे डिवीज़न भी हैं, जैसे मैं अभी ये खास करके ये जो झारखंड का जो ट्राइब है उनकी बात कर रहा हूँ, तो उनका काम ही है, मतलब वो ब्रिक किल में एक टर्म है, वो निकासी बोलते हैं, मतलब जो जिनका काम है वो भराई और निकासी बहुत हम लोग यूज़ करते हैं term। तो वो उनका काम ही है, सिर्फ वो ब्रिक किल में फिल करेंगे और निकालेंगे। तो इस तरीके से, और जैसे जो चिमनी बनाने का जो है, तो वो नॉर्थ इंडिया में जितना भी है, सारे अलीगढ़ के मुस्लिम्स हैं, उनको ही पता है वो, और वो काम करते हैं। जैसे फायरिंग का है, जो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट वो होता है, मतलब वो अगर जहाँ रहेंगे उनके पीछे 2 आदमी हरदम बॉडीगार्ड की तरह लगे रहेंगे, मतलब वो कि वो भाग ना जाए, तो उनको सबसे पहले हायर किया जाता है। और वो प्रतापगढ़ के हैं, वो कई जनरेशन से उनकी फैमिली वो सिर्फ फायरिंग का काम करते हैं, करोड़ों का इन्वेस्टमेंट है वो ब्रिक, और उनको पता है कितना टेम्परेचर पे कितना वो होना है, मतलब। और जो कास्ट जो ब्रिक से मोल्ड वो निकालते हैं, उसमें ज़्यादातर मार्जिनाइज जो लोकल कम्युनिटीज़ है, मतलब यूपी के, वो इन्वॉल्व है, मतलब। तो इस तरह बहुत सारा ऐसा लेयर है, तो आप एकदम इजीली समझ में आएगा। मतलब ये जो झारखंड के जो हैं वो उनका अलग रहते हैं, अपने में उनका जो ये मोल्ड का काम करते हैं, जो ब्रिक प्लास्टिक कर रहे हैं, तो वो कि उनको तो पूरा वो फैमिली को हायर करते हैं, मतलब एक किसी फैमिली का जो मेन हेड है उसको पे करेंगे, तो उनका वो तो साइड पे ही रहेंगे, वो टेम्प्रोरी ऐसा घर बनाते हैं उसी ब्रिक से, फिर वो बाद में सेल हो जाता है।
Dishan and Amin.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm just segueing from this into the idea of the personal, because for me, when I look back at all the work that I've managed to do in the last 2 decades, and when I string all of them, I realize that I've been trying to subconsciously find my own identity. Because I'm a love child. My mother is Parsi, my dad is Muslim. So I'm a product of two people that were also trying to find their footing in society, and also rebellious in their own way. So my work always became about trying to find the self through the community that I'm actually documenting and photographing, be it in Kashmir or the Northeast. So it always became, when I look back, it's funny, I'm trying to always find my own footing, my own ground. So coming to the work that I recently made, thanks to the grant from Shared Ecologies, is again a community that I started connecting with the idea of who they were, are, and are being perceived as in their own land in Assam, the Bengali-speaking Muslims, who are called the Miyas in that region, and my connect with the community, a direct connect with the community, can only be someone from the community, because I will always be looked at, even with my name, as an outsider. So it takes much doing to create that relationship. And I happened to find the best companion, Amin Nazrul Islam. And spending time with Amin, I realized how sound started informing my own practice. My visuals started becoming more fluid after spending time with Amin. Him singing, him explaining what this meant in Batiali and why oral history for them, culturally, historically, from cultivation to the more right political stories that they have to live with now, uh, have started informing my own work. And I've also realized my work has become softer and not very jarring after the inclusion of Amin's voice. And Amin could talk about how we've collaborated with sound and how what singing means to you, and you bring that voice to you take your voice and take a voice of your people out so that we all can hear it.
जी, आप लोग सभी जानते हैं ब्रह्मपुत्र नदी, रिवर ब्रह्मपुत्र। ब्रह्मपुत्र का जर्नी जैसे शुरू हुआ है चाइना से के, फिर बांग्लादेश, पद्मा, द रिवर पद्मा। तो उसी तरह मैं जिस कम्युनिटी से बिलोंग करता हूँ, हमारा भी वैसे ही एक जर्नी है, लेकिन उल्टी दिशा में। वो बहुत बड़ा हिस्टोरी है, मैं इतना दूर तक नहीं जाऊंगा। जस्ट जैसे रिवर का जो वाटर फ्लो, उसी तरह मैंने देखा। और हर साल ब्रह्मपुत्र के दोनों किनार जब फ्लड आते हैं, बिफोर फ्लड एंड आफ्टर फ्लड, काटता है नदी, इरोड होता है। उसी तरह हमारे लोगों का बहुत कहानियां है, कुछ दुख की है, कुछ सुख भरी कहानी भी है। ब्रह्मपुत्र के साथ साथ हमारे लोगों का कहानियां भी कभी कभार बह जाते हैं, वो लोगों तक पहुंच नहीं पाते। बहुत कहानियां हैं, और उन कहानियों को मैं गाने के जरिए लोगों के पास ले जाने का जो कोशिश कर रहा हूँ, वो पहले से ही था मेरे अंदर। फिर 2019 में इनको मिला जिशान ए लतीफ़, उनको मिलके अच्छा लगा। बहुत दिन उनके साथ रहे असम में। हमारे बीच का भी बहुत कहानियां हैं।
We both are extremely emotional people, and yesterday I had said during his performance that it's a reunion. We're meeting after almost 2 years, but when we meet, we start again where we had left off, which is our base was grief. 2021 was a time when he was trying to find his footing with his own community. How the youth took the abuse, the tag of the Mia, as a way to own it, own their narrative, and they started amazing a journey of rebellion through poetry, Mia sound, Mia literature, almost at the disdain of the locals, and how can the Mia create literature? How can the Mia create sound, music? But so one of his songs, in fact, is about urging his community, the youth of his community, to don't be chup, don't shut up, but start now. Now is the time for you to speak up. So it's a beautiful composition. I hope at some point you can hear it. But um, just spending time with him has made me a softer human being in terms of my visuals and the way I try and talk about community and my own connect with these people. And these documents, I don't know where, how they will evolve with time and what they become, objects of memory with time. But I'm just glad that someone can be with them and document and just spend time and hear their stories. And important that people like Amin are there and who are orally also documenting through the Northeast Music Project. So he's initiated this, he wants to document not just the Ohomia dialect or the Bhatiyadi dialect, but the entire dialects of the entire Northeast of India. So that's his endeavor. And we can go on, I'm sorry, but please. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me. This idea of a community is extremely important, and there are already lots of resonance as I'm hearing you three are talking. So the film I presented in the exhibition is about a very large coal mine in my home region in Manchuria. So it's actually the largest mine in Asia. It's 8 kilometer long, 400-meter deep. And it's in the middle of a 2 million people city. So it's like a quite large mine situated in the community. And this is a region I am from, in northeast China, bordering Russia and North Korea. And it has been Asia's first and largest heavy industrial base, first developed by Japan, colonized by Japan for 40 years, and used as a source of a natural resource extraction to support Japan's war machine during the war. And after 1949, became the foundation of a socialist industrialization. But since 1990s, massive layoff, the natural resources exhaustion, and state economies kind of sort of collapsed. So this is the region I'm from, and since I was very young, I wanted to run away from the Rust Belt, which is normal for the youth in Rust Belt. So I didn't want to be part of this community when I was a student, and I did run away. I went to study in Canada, but during the COVID, I really started to reflect our relationship with nature, and also I was very troubled by the crisis, ecological degradation, and also climate change. So naturally, like through personal connection, also through this intellectual, social responsibility, I wanted to reconnect with my region. But when I went back, my first idea is to talk about climate change with the local people from a very elitist intellectual point of view. But as soon as I arrived, I realized, no, you cannot even raise the issue of a climate change. You know, there must be more softer, more grassroots approach to it. And this is a journey that not only reconnecting to my home region, but also kind of re-educating me, somebody from a sort of an elitist Western education. And so I kind of formed this alliance with the local miners and local artists who are oftentimes teachers or working for the government. And together, I think, just forget about making a film, because if you are parachuted there and make film, you know, don't turn it into an extractivist practice in the name of a contemporary art. Let's together learn from each other and also learn from the earth. Yeah. So this whole learning process, we ventured into the mine pit. But right away I realized that the mine is very iconic, spectacular. But what we ignored is that there are waste mountains all around the mine that is still smoldering, that is burning without flames. Like 100 years of extraction, you leave so much mining waste there, carbon and sulfur being compressed and still burns. So, and there are still people living around. So together we kind of did a lot of drift in the mine on the waste mountain. I really like the exhibition called Murmuration, because a lot of what we did is to listen the murmurings from the earth and from the ancestors, from the non-human agents, from the birds, from the kind of animals living around the mine. And we did also a lot of sensorial journeys, like smelling it. So a lot of kind of taking away from the vision-centric, spectacular, so, and all this process of kind of is a forming alliance between humans and also with the non-human agents. So the filming really came much, much later. And this is also a process I start to learn about the local community. There are different layers of people. There are young generation who are really passionate about climate change and also ecological repair. But there are also older generations who kind of question the political state of China now. So we were talking about, Ravi asked me how you were able to film the mine. Actually, I became friends with some high-level managers, directors in a mining corporation. And several of them told me they were writers and poets in the 80s. 80s was a China that is much more, opening. And they were on Tiananmen in 1989, part of a student movement. But now they are this high-level bureaucrats in a state-owned company, and they tell me, we are not able to do anything radical or interesting in my position, but I'm willing to open access to you guys, so you can tell story in a more interesting way, and this is how we can make a change. So this is also, it make me to learn deeply, have a deeper understanding of a Chinese community, a Chinese society. So this community building continued after I make a film. I realized that there are young people who are engaged in critical myth making or critical kind of collecting folklores or myths, all those narratives that were sidelined by the communist regime. So I start to look at this mine not just as an industrial space, but also a kind of space where ancestral tales and folklores and erased memories are kind of accumulated in this void. I tried kind of through the listening, through critical myth making, I start to tell a story of the mind from not human perspective, but from the perspective of Earth goddess. Yeah. So this process of community engagement really informed my artistic practice. So after I made a film, I curated the exhibition, and I bring this film back to the community. We did a screening outdoors, and we engage more young people into other reading groups or workshops. So this kind of engagement continued. So it's not, film is not an end product, but it just, in Chinese we say, we throw a pebble in the pond and inviting ripples. Yeah, I will stop there. Yeah, thank you.
Kunga?
For me, the work was, the work started as a way for me to get inside my own community, because growing up, what I felt was, I'm from Sikkim. Yeah, I'm from Sikkim, and I'm working with my own community, which is called Lepcha community. So, being born and raised in urban space and studying always outside of my hometown, I always felt a disconnection with my own community. So, the work which has been displayed right now, it didn't start because I wanted to do a project. I only wanted to understand and know about my own community. So, and in a sense, even though I belong to the own community, I always felt like an outsider. So for me, it was important for me to like understand that first. So when I got inside, when I went to the place where most of the lecture community live, it's a place called Zongu in Sikkim. So that became a starting point for my the entire work that I'm doing right now. And what I got to understand was that people are deeply belonged and were belong to the land, and like it's a lot of this oral stories, a lot of this myth, a lot of these spiritual beliefs which people had. It's very important. It's not just like listening or reading like a nice story. It's a nice story, something like that. It's not just that. It's deeply embedded in the community, and it's such influence that people wanted to save the space because there were a lot of this hydropower project coming inside the land. So this whole the myth and the spiritual beliefs of the people really led to this people led people community to fight against the hydropower project that was coming. So in 2007, people sat on a hunger strike for almost 3 years, and a lot of people did relay hunger strike. And out of 6 hydropower projects, four power projects were like desanctioned by the state because of the people. So when I got to know that, when I got to hear this story, I was really deeply moved by this resilience of the people. I really wanted to know where this resilience came from, where this resilience of so many years, and people are still fighting till now. So I really wanted to not just how I started, like I wanted to know, but I really wanted to go much deeper and tell the story of my community. So that's, I think, how it started, and it's still a process right now. It's still a lot of things to do. Um, yeah.
You were talking about when we were discussing, you were talking about the relationship between trying to keep your sense of identity and spiritual life in the face of what's happening in the landscape which you relate to. And so that's part of the struggle of identity of the community as well?
Uh, yes, definitely. I think it's a mix of both. It's me as well. I mean, the work is also me, in the sense that my identity is also there. In the sense, my identity, like wanting to know my own place, that's also there. But also, like, it's also about people finding their own identity, and mostly it's like the protecting that, protecting the space, protecting the space which people really believe it's sacred, and it shouldn't be tampered with. So that's
Yeah, thank you. We come back to some of these things.
yeah.
But Prabhakar, you have a deep relationship to coal mining, and as an artist, your work reflects a lot uh, of your own
Yeah.
self.
Yeah. I grew up in a family of farmers and coal miners. I'm talking about eastern part of Maharashtra. It's a Chandrapur district. So I would say I would like to go through to my childhood and maybe recollect the stories and speak through a mind of a child, because for me growing up in the like Sasti town was I think very important for me to come from that particular space, because there were a lot of people coming from different part of India, such as from South India, Bengal, UP, Bihar. I already was getting a lot of like connections or understanding of different kind of culture within the small village. Chandrapur district has like more than like there are many minings, like especially the coal minings, but also steel power plants, and paper mills. There is also reserve forest. If you know, like Tadoba is the national forest in Chandrapur district. So while I was growing up in Chandrapur, and my family, like there is a generational occupation working in the coal mining company, Western Coalfields Limited, and I was fortunate to also not to be part of that. Like because my brother helped me to study something different than the regular education. For me, I think it was important for how I have observed, how I have been observant since my childhood, because I was seeing that each and every time there would be a very large machine would come to the town, and all the people would gather around that. It is like one of the biggest drag line machines. I used to get fascinated about this kind of machines and stuff, which is happening around the periphery of the village. And all our games, like children's games, used to be part of like the mining equipments. So I get really fascinated about that whole story about working and also sharing with the community. The sense of community was dissolving for me from that moment, and I could see the diversity of the village itself. So the moment I was studying art, I think I had a very different perspective when I was looking back to my home, or my hometown, because I was revisiting my hometown. I studied in different places in India, and when I was studying art, I think I was bringing a very different kind of questions through my practice, and bringing that to the community with my friends and families. What is happening? Like because I think Mia talked about the abandoned coal minings and the abandoned land, and what is going to happen after few years. So those sorts of questions have carried me and have carried myself and my thinking, and that leads to the like question of the excavation itself. Like what sorts of excavation are we doing? Is it just the industrial excavation, or are we also looking at the cultural excavations? When I say cultural excavations, it's also very important, because for me, I also see the divergence, like how we have, like, or the power has always been able to, divide the community. And now when I look back and go back to the village, it is not the same now. So I'm talking about like 20, 30 years back, how the village used to be and how it is now. It is completely abandoned. I have seen some of the villages, the farming, also land, huge hectares of land have been occupied and made into a largest, like open pit mining. There used to be a lot of underground mining in that area, and now I think there is only one underground mining left in the district itself. And one of the oldest mining was shut down, which I visited many times through my, like family, friends, and taking my friends also to experience certain different kinds of reality, because it's a drift mining. There are two types of underground mining, which one is like shaft mining, which you use the lift and go straight down to the earth, and one is drift mining, which is like you have to walk down all the way to the 400 meter, 500 meters, and that's their job. And like 2 hours walking to a pit and coming back, working for 6, 7 hours. And so I was interested, but I was also very much interested using fiction in my work, using stories in my, how do I represent this in a visual form, because I was very much interested in using or creating forms for my stop motion animation, sculptures, or painting or mural. So I have been, I think, lucky enough to also travel around the world to see different kinds of mining. My initial work was very much focused on my childhood and coal mining industries in India. But the moment I started traveling in Brazil, in the UK also, and some part of Europe and Colombia, Mexico, and some part of Asia where I have visited the mining museums and mining culture, and also the difference and comparison between Indian minings and Latin American mining or any Asian mining. So you see the differences when you look at, when you visit, any mining sectors in the UK or in Europe, and when you visit here, it's totally different. So I was having that idea of, like, what would happen in the future if we leave this kind of landscapes for the future, and I visited one of the mining in the UK, which was very much active. This is in the Durham region in the northeast of England, and which was completely covered after the excavations. So they keep the surface soil. Surface soil is the most important part in the mining practice, and that's how you can reclaim the land. So whereas I was having this question about, why can't we have such kind of practices in India? Why it is neglected in such a manner, and why it is so oppressively, taking everything from the local people. The similar stories I found in gold minings sectors in Minas Gerais in Brazil in 17th and 16th centuries. How your people have oppressively taken everything, all the golds. Like they used to take everything from the. And I also visited some of the minings which was done by only childrens from the age of 8 to age of 14. This is in Minas Gerais. This is a place called. I'm forgetting the name, but it is very close to the Belo Horizonte. Is one of the biggest town. So they call it like rat holes. Only like very small kids can go, and so that sort of comparison I was trying to make through my research. It became a research for me later on because it was my process of also learning. From now, like after working for more than 10-15 years, I'm realizing and also revisiting my own research and responding through different sorts of mediums like clay sculptures. And there's one more thing, that ephemerality that in my practice I often revisit, and I like to work in that certain way where my work doesn't exist for longer time. Some of the works are destroyed after the exhibition. So that become a process or a story for me.
You don't show sculpture so much, but now you are showing here. And
I trained as a sculptor, but I was, I think, finding a limitations in sculpture itself, because I was finding more interestingly the use of drawing. I think was fascinating for me because I was using drawing as a medium for a mural, for a sculpture, for stop motion animation. But later on, after doing that for certain years, I think I got bored. I extensively used charcoal as my medium. But later on, I thought like, no, I have to, it came very naturally to me also. Like I started using different sorts of natural mediums, and also I'm using now different kind of mediums for my sculptures. So I'm working more now with the sculptures.
So I just wanted to add that in terms of working with community, right? So I started the work in 2020, and I'm still working right now. And it almost took me like it's only been 2 years that I've really found my footing in the work. So I just want to add that like working with the community requires a lot of, as you said, like listening, and also it takes a lot of time. I think a lot of time and patience to really understand what their hope is really, like what do we really like share it across through our artwork and all that, right? So I think it's like, yeah, time and.
and of course, it seems, if I may say, in the art world, we tend to romanticize community a lot because we romanticize the homogeneity and ignore the structures within community. And the gender question is always, so I think we have to be careful about the way community has been completely, it's constantly being revived in the art world as an opposition to the individual. So collective, community, and we have to interrogate these words from the ground up with practice, I think, rather than just with abstraction. But I want to now bring to, by choice, the last of the, they wanted to sit here. So Neetu, who's a poet and a birder, but poet, and Surabhi, who's from the tech side of the world, an engineer, but now a sound artist, right? And they've been collaborating with the more than human community, with the lapwings of the Yamuna. So this is an experimental project still going on. Would you like to speak about your communities?
I'll talk about the present project in a while, but because we have been talking about community for a while now, I wanted to first think through my whole understanding of the term itself and the concept of community. As an academic, because that's how Ravi introduced me, as an academic, I look at the word community with a great deal of interrogation. I don't really accept it. You just mentioned it, that we kind of tend to homogenize it, we tend to deflect, we tend to kind of ignore the inbuilt positionalities of the structures within community. And but then we also, as personally though, I always think that just because we now have access to various groups and their collective traumas and the historical the historical spaces that they had inhabited, just because we have access to such communities, does it really mean that we can turn them into art, their histories into art? That's one question that has always kind of, I've been trying to work through that question in my own understanding of my individual work, as also, in a larger context of my work as an academic. And the second is, who is an insider, who is an outsider, as Kunga said, because even when you are an insider, you may continue to feel like, you don't belong. And speaking for myself, I come from Assam, and my history is with the Brahmaputra, because that's my past, that's my ancestry. My ancestors were fisher folk. So there is this huge negotiation on my part that has to happen, which has been happening for the past 20 years or so. And my work, my poetry, has actually been trying to negotiate this whole question of ancestral knowledge, even though you don't really see that in the kind of work that is published. And when I first started publishing my poetry, it was mainly about issues of representation, silenced voices, etc., mainly gender-oriented. But as time passed, I realized that this is not enough. This is not enough. This does not really allow me to speak as a person, as an Assamese person, as an Ohomia woman. I just did not really allow me to speak for my people, the community that I belong to. I'm actually not an outsider to the community. I belong to that community. So how do I represent myself became a more important question for me, rather than how would others represent me, or how would I represent others. And so this whole the whole business of the other, as academics want to speak about quite often, the whole business of the other became very, very intense in my word struggles, if I may put it that way. How to find words actually for that in my poetry and my other kinds of work, other artwork that I am usually invested in, which took me to, because this constant sense of what I would almost call it embedded alienation, led me to the world of the non-human other, which is again one of the buzzwords at the moment, and which led me to birding and to be invested in the world of to see the bird as it exists, not just as something that to be labeled, but also to see the bird as beyond the labels, the scientific labels, the Latin names, the colonizers' names. So you see, the project that Surbi and I have been working on, we have been trying to relocate the idea of naming itself. And in my first poem in the project, it's a sound project, but I'm also we're trying to see it through sound, through the sound of the red wattle lapwing, but also as how do I respond to the red wattle lapwing on the banks of the Yamuna? How do I respond to the call of the red wattle lapwing? So one of the first poem, for instance, is on naming, and it kind of deliberately positions the lapwing's name in Assamese, which is Bali Ghura, which is not red wattle lapwing, but Bali Ghura, which is sand horse, Bali Ghura. And it is that is the name that I'm going to use, I will continue to use for the red wattle lapwing, because it kind of subverts for me the whole question of naming, of identity, of who you see yourself as represented, as representational, as someone who who is being forced into a kind of into this divide of either you be community or be community, become a part of a community because you other people want you to become that. And so these are like problems that I've been trying to work through. And Ornithosonics, which is the work that Surbi and I have been collaborating on, is mainly about moving towards sound, which is my own idea about, my idea was to see sound moving through poetry merely as sound, true meaning and meaninglessness, and also to move away from kind of entrapped ideas of linguistic politics, if I may put it that way. So there's a lot of Assamese words in the poems, and Surbi, I think, will talk more about what we have been working on. We have been working on various other things like the drafting of things, the process of working through our ideas, marginalia, and that is something that we have been working on. And I think it really kind of, I think it's a very political understanding of the Yamuna Bank politics. If you are Delhiites, you will know what Yamuna Bank politics means, but that is to move it towards a more, a different kind of domain, as it were. So Surbi.
There's a mic there. No, we're just waiting for you. I'm filling the gap.
Thank you, Neetu. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As Neetu very articulately positioned our project and left it at the Yamuna banks, is where I also kind of come into the project, because I have been living in, I was born in Delhi, I was brought up in Delhi, and the Yamuna is the river that flows through Delhi. And before I started working with sound, I had never really engaged with the river in any way, except for knowing that it was the water that was coming through my taps. And it's my engagement with sound, particularly on the Yamuna, is kind of thinking through the spillages of sound. How we think about community, a community's sound as being this neat box, that this sound belongs to this community, this sound belongs to this community, a bird is supposed to sound like this, a human is supposed to sound like this. And there's just so much spillage, there's so much entanglement, which is another buzzword that is going on right now, but there's just so much entanglement in these sounds of different communities. that is kind of what I have been exploring around the Yamuna for the last 5 or 6 years. My primary way of doing this has been through field recordings, field visits. But one of the things is immersing myself in the soundscape rather than imposing myself in the soundscape. And I don't want to take from the soundscape, but as Kunga very articulately put, what does it mean for me as a Delhiite, as a person who was born and brought up in Delhi, to engage with the Yamuna, something that is an integral part. Delhi was settled on the banks of the Yamuna because there's a river there. So that is kind of how I entered Ornithosonics, the project that Neetu described, where we're looking at Yamuna's socio-political cultural positioning through the sound of the red wattle lapwing. And that has involved kind of looking, because the red wattle lapwing is also popularly known as the did you do it bird, which is its onomatopic name, because its sound is, when it calls out, it sounds like did you do it. But that is also who gave that name, where does that name come, what does it mean? It's in English. What does it mean for that to become its onomatopic name and for us to recognize it like that? So these are some of the things that we have kind of thought of about naming, but it has also the spillage, which I was talking about later, the entanglements have kind of spilled into the how poetry entangles with field recording, with field visits, and then other formats. So for instance, Neetu has done some beautiful drawings, and if you visit the exhibit, you will find a small artist book over there, which has our drafts. So there's a lot of marginalia, like I do work primarily with sound, but I don't identify with a particular medium as this medium is the only medium that I will work with. So I have given photographs in those, because those photographs have helped me think through the sound. I have looked at yeah, so I have looked at painting, watercolors. So in these entanglements also of the medium, what does it mean to look at the idea of sounds of a community, whether that's a more than human, other than human, non-human, the Yamuna, the Delhiites, the river itself, what these communities kind of entangling their relationships, their sounds, and what does that represent for um, us as humans?
So obviously, we're not going to do through three questions because we have very interesting things to share. So we will curtail it. We will work with the time. So a short comment from all of you, and because we want to also have hopefully some audience participation, that we'll have the last 10 minutes for that. So we have 10 minutes to do a short round. It's a question which is often asked of artists. We all sort of working in socio-political realms. And this artist practice is always under question. So what did you change? So how do you relate to the idea of social responsibility, this burden of social responsibility, which is only asked mostly of artists, I think. But quickly around the table and then we open it up. Start with you this time.
I will. Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's a great question. I think the responsibility for me, honestly, because I have, as Ravi introduced me, I have, in a past life, I was an engineer and working in the corporate world. I sometimes feel like this responsibility is a burden I'm happy to bear because it unfolds over time, and it is a responsibility that I feel very grateful to have, rather than something that that I can't carry, because the changes that I see are not, they're very incremental, whether it's in myself or in the community around me. And I think that is how I find my belonging in the world, which is what Kunga was talking about earlier. I feel my work is trying to find belonging, and the responsibility, the fact that I have this responsibility is my way of finding belonging.
ये क्वेश्चन अक्सर पूछा जाता है मैं जितनी बार प्रेजेंटेशन दिया हूँ हर बार आया तो मैं एक एग्जांपल के साथ इसको क्योंकि मेरे जब फादर कोल माइंस में थे तो कोल माइंस में ईयरली फोटोग्राफ शूट होता था, तो वो जो भी फोटोग्राफर थे क्योंकि उनका फॉरेन से वो होता था, तो ऑस्ट्रेलियन माइंस के एक्सपर्ट आते थे, रिसर्च आएंगे, तो वो फोटोग्राफ्स करते थे हमारे फादर्स का। और मुझे बहुत गुस्सा आता था कि मतलब वो ऐसे क्यों दिखा रहे हैं, मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि मतलब वो जॉय नहीं है या वो अच्छे कपड़े नहीं पहनते हैं, अच्छे से नहीं रहते हैं, वो उनको वही चाहिए, मतलब हाँ नहीं आप इस चेहरा को मत, मुझे याद है अभी तक मेरे फादर वो बोले थे नहीं मैं चेहरा वो करके आता हूँ, हाँ नहीं 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 हमें ऐसा ही चाहिए। तो जब मैं ये शूट कर रहा था ब्रिक किल में, जब काम कर रहा था, तो मैंने ये बमाको बिनाले में फोटोग्राफ्स दिखाया था। तो मैंने वो क्योंकि ब्रिक किल में मतलब ऐसा नहीं था कि मैं एज एन आर्टिस्ट ही काम कर रहा था, क्योंकि काफ़ी टाइम 10 साल हो गए एंगेजमेंट और उनके थ्रू ही हम वहाँ पे काम कर रहे थे। तो वहाँ पे कुछ शादी वगैरह होता था, उसमें भी वो इनवाइट करते थे। तो वो पूरा लव मैरिज था ब्रिक किल में, क्योंकि अलग अलग कम्युनिटीज़ काम करती है। तो मैंने मतलब वर्कर को उस तरीके से नहीं, मतलब एक पूरा, क्योंकि एकदम अलग है ना कि आप एकदम इंडियन वेडिंग का कैसे वो होता है, तो वो लोग भी वैसे ही करते हैं। तो बहुत लोग सरप्राइज, अरे ये लोग वर्कर हैं ऐसे कैसे पहन रहे हैं, मतलब तो ये मतलब आता है मतलब इस तरीके से। हाँ representation की बात है।
I stay far away from this. I don't want the pressures when I'm creating. I just go along, and I know the work will have representations because I come with a certain eye and where I come from, but I'm also aware of my privilege. So I think to use the privilege to also talk about certain stories is important. So I think that for me takes away that pressure. No, I want to be able to go somewhere and talk about a certain story. And in no way I want to take away their narrative. I want to be there, try and spend as much time as possible, and with time, know if I can actually represent or misrepresent. That's why having Amin for this project is so important, it's critical, because he's also my eye, and he's also the judge of his own people. And if he thinks something is wrong, it's good to have somebody with you who can probably stop you or make you look at even your work differently. हाँ मतलब best है ना, but it's you know you're getting it live, is you getting it right there, you're working with the community. And so there's no, I do not want to go on the field with any sort of pressure and having to come across as a certain sort of artist, or so. I mean, yeah, very simple for me. No, I mean, I'm.
हाल ही में वो आप लोग सभी जानते हैं जुबिंदा असम का आइकन। उन्होंने एक बात बोला था कि हाँ, एक आर्टिस्ट हर पल लोगों के साथ ही होते हैं, जनता के साथ होते हैं, वही राजाओं के साथ नहीं होते। वही रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होता है कि अपने लोगों का कहानियाँ वही। थैंक यू।
तो जो गाने जो आप गाते हो, तो उसमें आपको लगता है कुछ प्रेशर, या आप गाते हो क्योंकि आपको आता है गाना, उसके साथ कुछ जब आप गाते हो तो फिर उसके साथ कुछ प्रेशर्स आती हैं, मतलब जब लोग सुनते हैं जो आप बोल रहे हो, ऐसा कुछ बनाने के बाद कुछ आता है प्रेशर?
नहीं नहीं, बनाने के बाद हाँ, बनाने के बाद तो प्रेशर आता है, वो अलग बात है, शायद इसके साथ नहीं जाएगा। वो इसीलिए मैं इंटर
I think first and foremost, I want to be responsible for myself. Yeah. Responsible for my own attunement with the heaven and earth and spirits and ancestors, with my own inner calling, with all my own surroundings, my own environment. Nobody is just an artist. Everybody is a mother and father, a partner, a friend, an educator. So the artist really comes after all of these, right? So I think my own practice is really to sort out my own process, this attunement, harmony. So to have all the energy flow smoothly and situate myself in a better cosmological configuration of all of this. And I think that's the most important thing. And the community will comes along this process. And also it's important to understand you are just a part of this long flowing river, and get over yourself, get over your artistic ego, and don't expect to come up with a socio-economical, political solution. And I think it's more important to open up our senses and to open up our memories for myself and for my own communities, and understand the community is really more fluid than something that is fixed and monolithic, and go with the flow.
You also work with activist communities, right? And how do you relate to them? How do they relate to you, and what expectations on these activities?
Yeah, I mean,
in that.
yes. Few years back, like one of our budding artists from Sikkim asked me the same question, and I gave an answer that I said that no, I mean, why should we take the burden? We are doing what we are trying to do, but the burden shouldn't be there, but it may affect your work. That was the answer that I gave, but but now I have a different understanding of the same thing. Especially, I had this community exhibition 1.5 years back, I think, in Gantok. So, and I invited a lot of activists from the affected citizen of T-Star movement, and there were also local youths, and a lot of people were there. So I had made this zine, which is part of the exhibition. So the zine is the direct representation of the activism that's been happening in Sikkim for almost 20 years, and also the recent flood that happened, right? So after the exhibition, one of the activists, what she told me was that this is something we wanted to do for a very long time, and you did it for us. Basically, they were not able to gather all this archival material of the protests and all that together and share it with the people. And so that was something moving for me, and I really felt that, the responsibility, right? I mean, it comes to responsibility of what you are trying to say. Your work is traveling to Goa, to Serendipity, your work is traveling to US, and all other places. You're representing you're representing a community, right? So I think it's a responsibility to say something which is important for the people whom we are documenting, whom we are telling the story. So I think there is a sense of responsibility, but I feel the burden shouldn't be there. The burden of I mean, you have to be responsible.
Can come from your own community also, because they're still there and you're moving.
That's true.
Does it come to you?
It comes. I think about it a lot. Because when I was doing the exhibition, I was really nervous. I was thinking what will they say? Looking at this work, I'm trying to make all this idea of fiction and putting mythical side to it, and what will they say? I was okay, will they say this is bullshit? What are I trying to say? Those questions were really there.
Mia said you went back and showed the work in space, and how was that experience?
Yes, I went back to show my work, and I was very nervous, especially some older generation working for the factory or the mine. And after I showed the film, everybody just for a few seconds, everybody was like this, the body language. and gradually they start to talk, and one said we've been in the same sites and making photos, pictures alongside of you. I never expected this is something that would come up. It looks familiar, but also kind of disfamiliarize the site from them, which they interpret it as a good thing because my work opened up a different way to look at sites. And one man, he's 50 years old, he's quite senior up, and he said, you should be more radical. Don't worry about censorship. Just really get out there, be more radical next time. So I kind of underestimate them in a way. So it's really through their encouragement I go further. But I do understand that my work traveled quite a bit, so I know.
Yeah. I just want to add, the responsibility comes after you began something because you wanted to, and then what happened was an offshoot when you got moved, when they saw your work, because you were already embedded and you started something because you truly wanted to, right? You felt something. So responsibility is it became offshoot of something that you already engaged with. So I think we all begin with something that we really intentfully wanted to do, and when you see that it's impacting somebody, then the whole question of responsibility comes in after that. But we anyway creating and things, if it benefits, then you feel okay, now you put a weight on your work. But you'd be doing it without any sort of weight initially. Then when you see impact, then you put these questions. And I want to add, I had pressure. I'm sorry.
I have a very different but quite similar perspective about responsibility. I think we are always responsible for something. I think I have learned through my sister and my mother that being aware and taking care, that brings a lot of responsibility to running a family or running anything, or also nurturing. I learn a lot about taking care of things, and I learned through my sister and my mother and my older generation in my family. And many times these questions comes to me, when I started talking about the community, the labor, the issues of the mining, and a lot of journalists or people ask me, do you consider yourself as a spokesperson for the community? And do you feel responsible for that? I was like, why should I only have to take care of all that burden? When I'm creating, I'm not feeling that, hesitant to even talk about it or make things like that, because we are all witnessing at the same time, in the same, atmosphere, landscape, and all kind of layers of time. We have a history of considering ourselves as a human, ourselves as a intellectual, being. That itself has a lot of responsibility, I feel. And I always take these kind of questions very happily, and I like to and deliver like that in a very easiest way, and also the local people or local community could understand and could also relate to what is happening. I have whenever I travel, I try to speak and meet the exhibition makers, like people who build the exhibition, people who create exhibitions, and people who come to see the exhibition. Not necessarily like art community, but when I do that, when I try to understand through their perspective, they also reflect on this kind of questions. So that means like we are all actually facing the similar kind of inquiries. And I feel it's important that art, it's important for art to reflect in that sense, in that way. So I think that's my answer.
Anyway, these are long discussions, but Preeti, you want to add something?
Um, I think in my own work, the only care I take is that I should not be appropriating someone else's voice. That's a very big thing for me. Also, I think there are big festivals like Serendipity, for instance. I whoever I talked to, Gafur, or the person the CAP person I came with to the venue today. He said, "ये कहाँ है?" And I said, "ये GMC." And he said, "आप medical college में जा रहे हो?" I said, "No, medical college नहीं जा रही हूँ." So it's like, how is this huge festival? Is it having any impact upon the local populace, upon the viewers who come here? I think I feel totally socially responsible only in the classroom. That's where I feel I'm a true artist and I'm totally socially responsible. And I think I'm very, very careful, and I give trigger warnings, even though Ravi tells me you should not give trigger warnings. The classroom is it's a very poignant, it's a very powerful space for me. And I'm very, very careful in that space. It's not life. Because you said trigger warnings. Life may trigger warnings nahi hota, but I said classroom is not life. A classroom is not, the space is different, and you need to give trigger warnings in a classroom space.
You already said something. You want, okay. So now we have time, we have 3 minutes, and I'm a stickler for time, so please, any questions? Comments? You must have something to say. These both questions will relate to everybody. We are all asked to legitimize ourselves all the time. Yes, Siddharth?
Start with a small did he do it story. I heard it for the first time from my father, who was an amateur birder, way back in the early 70s. And I think he just met Salim Ali, so there could be something in Salim Ali's work where he got that idea from. But going back to Birendraji, I'm an architect and I work with brick as a primary material. And I'm curious because people who are working in the kiln, do they feel that they are contributing to a larger structure, a larger image, a larger realization, or they feel that they're an unimportant part? सवाल ये है कि जो लोग ईंट बनाने में काम करते हैं, क्या उनको लगता है कि जब इमारत बनती है तो उनका भी उसमें हिस्सा है? क्या वो कभी जाके उसके साथ जुड़ते हैं? क्या उनको ऐसा लगता है कि हाँ, मेरा भी हाथ था इस चीज को बनाने में?
अभी कोची बाइनियल में मैं एक प्रोजेक्ट दिखा रहा हूँ. उसका टाइटल ही है प्रोजेक्ट का ओनली अर्थ नाउ देयर लेबर. वो पूरा इनविजिबल लेबर के बारे में है. और वो जो प्रोजेक्ट है, सेम मेरा भी यही क्वेश्चन है. उसमें मैं इन लेबर को देखता हूँ, तो वो सेम ब्रिक क्ले को यूज़ किया हूँ मैंने. और वो जो पूरी स्टोरी है, मतलब कि क्योंकि पूरे कोची का बिल्डिंग या कहीं भी, मतलब बनारस आप देख लो, पूरा कहीं ना कहीं उनका बनाया हुआ, बट वो कहीं भी नहीं है. मतलब तो ये तो हमारा सिस्टम का ऑफकोर्स ये है कि हाइड है. मतलब तो मैंने इसलिए क्योंकि वो उस प्रोजेक्ट में भी मैं यही हाईलाइट कर रहा था कि क्योंकि वो ब्रिक, सिर्फ अगर ब्रिक की हम बात करें, वो ना जाने कितने जनरेशन से आ रहा है और वो इतना टफ है. क्योंकि जब मैं टेराकोटा स्टार्ट कर रहा था, तब भी क्योंकि मैं मतलब एक प्रोसेस में उस मीडियम से टकराया था मैं, कि वो बच्चों के साथ वर्कशॉप, जब मैं अपने प्रैक्टिस में उसको जब इंट्रोड्यूस करने के लिए सोचा, वो इतना टफ था. मतलब आप सेम क्ले से, वाइल्ड क्ले से, एक क्योंकि हमें बना बनाया क्ले मिलता है, हम काम कर रहे हैं, तो उसका एक बहुत ही अलग अपीयरेंस होता है. बट आप एकदम सेम वाइल्ड क्ले से आप स्कल्पचर बनाने जाते हो, तो फायरिंग करने जाते हो, बस्ट होता है, फायरिंग प्रोसेस. तो मैंने ये सीखा उनसे कि मतलब ये एक सिर्फ, तो क्योंकि वो ब्रिक बना रहे हैं, हम उनको आर्टिसन भी नहीं मानते हैं. मतलब एटलीस्ट हम जो साड़ी बना रहे हैं उसको एटलीस्ट हम आर्टिसन भी बोलते हैं. तो वो पूरा जो कोची का प्रोजेक्ट है, अगर आपको टाइम मिले तो आप देखिएगा, मतलब वो पूरा इसके ऊपर ही है.
So we can have a long discussion. But one about this is very important. It's 1:30, so we close. but leaving with this question of can art really deal with structural issues in society? So the social responsibility, why is it always asked of artists to legitimize? What about structural issues which these artists, the practices bring up, and is aesthetics has the possibility of dealing with that? So these are questions I leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you for this wonderful conversation.